toilet time machine and the beginning. Fourth by R.M. Davis. A man named Tripp loved inventing things. He discovered his radioactive rocks off the coast of Cornwall. They needed to make these machines. Not one of them, but 13 of them. But don't ask me why. Just in case one didn't work. The thing is, his invention will always go wrong. Once he nearly blew up London trying to make a rocket go up to space and be far beyond the planets. But his so-called rocket only got as far as 1 foot. So he gets his army to help him out. This army, they helped him out and faked aliens from other planets. They seemed far too human to him. He managed to get these radioactive rocks clearly into the time machines. These machines were made like into a toilet room. Well, why use toilets? I had no idea. Local people in the town had tried out these machines to see if they worked. How it works is, you go into the toilet, you have a sit down, and you have a think. And poof! You've gone somewhere with your imagination. But now, one machine remains. The aliens have discovered indeed it worked. I didn't want the 13th one to go. So these aliens pushed him, and one alien hit the machine, and one of Tripp's spanners. They're smashing into the radioactive rock. The radioactive starts to leak. But all was not too late. Tripp and the army vanish into thin air. They vanished from the year 2025 in Cornwall to Valentine's Park in Ilford, that is in Essex, in 2001. The army runs to get Tripp, but all seems too late. He finishes into thin air. Now let's begin our story with part 1, Army Time. Long time ago, we knew travel wasn't possible until today. In Valentine's Park, Ilford, Essex, was a secret army base. No one could see. It was invisible. But a boy named Richard Kaz was in that park one day, and could see his army base clear as anything. Before he could do anything, a group of army men told Richard Kaz, "Come." He was told to go and do tasks which were found fun. Not sure why he was doing them. If rifle shooting, he found that quite fun. So he decided to stay that night. He had no choice because they wouldn't let him go. The next day, Richard was cast as soon to go to Base B. Base A was used for top secret reasons. In Base B, rephrase that, in Base A, there was a toilet. Do you know where this is leading? As Richard Katz went to Base A, the alarm went off. Richard Katz ended up in Base B, and the toilet was gone. He's standing there, he's confused. The sergeant walked in and looked straight at Richard Kaz. Richard was brought to the sergeant's office straight away. The sergeant said to Richard Kaz, "Tell me! The toilet has gone!" "I have no idea, sir, honest." The sergeant yelled, "You must die!" Richard had to fight over the guards. He managed to pick up a falling gun and pointed it at the men and began to fire. And they all turned to bunnies, which seemed strange. Richard Kaz heard a ticking noise As it stopped, the sergeant exploded. All of a sudden, explosions everywhere. Richard Cass ran for it and got to a bus, an 86 bus, all the way to Romford, Essex. Then he ran all the way to Hornchurch, Essex, and he decided to go to his friend's house. Richard Cass ran all the way to his house. The worst thing that happened was to travel on time. Part 2, the twist. As Richard Cass got his mate's house, James, Richard Cass went in. His friend was on the PlayStation 2. He hears the front door go. And first he turns round and finds Richard in such fear. As lunchtime was up, Richard and his friend sat down at the dinner table eating pizza and drinking Coke. Time went on for bedtime. So he stayed at his friend's house. Has his friend let him stay round that night? Off to bed, sleepy. Much later that night, Richard left his friend's room to go to the toilet. Goes into the bathroom. As Richard Cass came out of the bathroom, he puts his foot into his friend's door. All of a sudden, blue, and lights of flash, and Wicks flashes by. Boom! Question is, the Tories got twisted. James is now to arrive at Richard's house, and they're planning to go to London dungeons. And James soon arrives at Richard Cass's house, and they chat. Richard Cass is not aware he has travelled forward in time yet. But how? As Richard Cass picks up the pillow, 2 white flashes. Suddenly Richard Cass was in a blue room of mixed purple all over. There stood a vampire, a strange-looking vampire. He had a deep voice. He was wearing a black long coat. The vampire drew closer and closer. He stood there in fear. The vampire spoke and said, "Leave my world at once." Richard shut his eyes and opens them and still finds himself in a room. The vampire then starts to fade and puff of smoke. All of a sudden, green flashes of light. He's standing back in his own room with his friend and puts the pillow down. James asked his friend what will he see at London dungeons, and James wondered if he would get scared. Richard Cass replied, "Maybe you'll see." As they both settled down to bed, cats in the night meowed. Meow. Only a voice Richard Cass could hear spoke, saying, "James, is the key? The all mystery?" Richard thought he was dreaming when he heard a voice. The flashes of light mean time travel to different parts of the world at the same time, on the same planet. Don't know why. James woke up in bed and was shocked to see he saw Black Cyrus. Richard was puzzled, but James ran out of the street. Richard Cass screamed and saw blue lights. With a twist, Richard Cass got sucked in this blue light, and Richard Cass was now standing in Ryde, Isle of Wight bus station. A stranger came up to him and said, "What are you doing here?" Richard replied, "I'm finished." Then a wormhole, looking blue, sucked Richard Cass up. It was spinning. He fell into the bathroom floor, facing onto the toilet. He stood up, brushed himself, and he came out of the bathroom. Feeling a bit funny. James woke up. He looked straight at Richard Cass and said, "You were in the toilet sometime?" Richard Cass replied, "You don't want to know what happened." Then a wormhole sucked up Richard Cass and spinning like crazy. Then all goes black. Richard Cass woke up in his own bed in the morning. And James, where? Was this a dream? You ask yourself. Let's see. Part 3. Off we go. Richard Cass was off to his mate's house, James. James Cass met James in Romford at market. As Richard Cass saw James, he told him what really happened in his toilet. About the flashes, James found it quite funny. Ha! Yeah. They both explored Romford. Then his friend drove him back to his house. They both got into the car and they were soon on their way. When they got to their destination, they both got out of the car and James went into his house, followed by Richard. They both had lunch, as they soon got in and played on the PlayStation 2 again. Time went on, had dinner, also with his family. They watched TV. Soon it was time for sleepy. That night, Richard Cass went to the toilet, but before he woke James and said, "Come with me. I need to show you something." James went along half awake, half asleep. Look, but Richard Cass, all hyped up, looked and ready to explode. Richard and his friend stepped into the toilet. Richard slammed the door. Bang! Then Richard Cass opened the door very slowly. As he opened the door, James came out of the toilet, feeling funny. It was an odd thing. Richard was at his house, in his toilet. They both shot back into the toilet, shut the door, and reopened it again. Richard Cass was now standing at his house in James's toilet. That's odd. It's very odd. As Richard Cass went into the toilet, the door seemed to fade. White flashes before his eyes. Richard Cass was now standing at King's Cross, platform 13 3/4. He found it quite odd. Luckily Richard was wearing daytime clothes. He knew it was a time machine, as he was told. And he was told to get the Hogwarts Express. Richard Cass found it strange, so he got the train. The train started to move. Richard Cass, you heard James' voice saying, "Richard! Get off the train now!" Richard Cass looked at the window and James said, "Soldier, go to open the door," and the door vanished into a window. James yelled, "What's going on?" Then James vanishes into thin air. Richard Cass is now on the train. On the way to Hogwarts, a young lady named Louise walks in Richard's carriage and says, "Young man, are you okay?" "My name is Louise." "What's going on?" says Richard Cass. She sat down beside him and he told her what happened to him and his mate. She replied, "Oh, I got here by getting a bus, and then flash, I'm here." Louise was from a planet called Venus. So what has Trip, the inventor, done? No one knows. Then the train stops at a station called We Do Ho Station. They both get off the train and the door vanishes. And as they come out to the station, a tall castle stood in front of them, looking very big, long, and magical. Both of them paused, started to amazement, completely lost for words. Professor Dumbledore calls the adults to the castle to enter the door into the great hall. Richard Cass shouts out, "This is a Harry Potter film, this is." A teacher named Snape comes up to him and says, You'll leave Harry Potter alone, you hear?" Richard Cass found everything strange but cool in some way. Richard Cass had to put on a snotting hat. It was bright green, rich hat. The idea of a snotting hat, it picks up what house team you like to fit in. They are Slytherin, the one that means snakes rule and do sneaky stuff. Gryffindor, the one that likes you brave and what you do. Hufflepuff, the one that likes to dig deep into the work and do the best. Ravenclaw, the one that represents a raven looking down on people, knowing how much is everything. The snotting hat reads your mind skills. So Richard puts the hat on, sits on a stool in front of the whole school in the great hall. The hat spoke. Stranger here. Come by toilets, I hear. Harry Potter laughs. So it'll have to be slithering, you stranger. He found it very strange. Then he walked over to the slithering table. Then everyone went to the bedrooms. Once the sorting hat was over, Richard Kaz got to the men's bathroom. He found, the bedrooms he went to, and took to the bathrooms. And he found a nice four-poster. Even strange, his clothes were there. As Richard Kaz got to the toilet, Harry Potter comes to Richard Kaz and says, "Ha! You can't use the toilet. You're banned. You can't use the toilet. I know you returned home and we don't want you to." "Who says?" "Well, me and my pals at the head of Hogwarts." And Harry Potter moves off in a magical way. Richard Kaz then tries to risk it and goes to the toilet, and Hagrid, the tall giant, pushes him away. Richard now finds it hard to go back home. Watch the next YouTube clip on Part 4, Void Magic.